All right, here we go, guys. Last one. Latin America, lands of many cultures. So this is our All Ye Lands textbook, chapter 16 for 8th grade. You know what I'm going to say next. You can watch if you want, but if that description doesn't match you, then you're watching the wrong slides. Okay, now, I split this up. We talked about Central America separate from South America, okay? But a more common division and the way your book broke up the Western Hemisphere is the way this map shows, okay? Your book said North America, Latin America, right? Latin America gets its name from the most common languages that are spoken there today, which would be Spanish and Portuguese. And both of those languages come from the Latin language family. They have a Latin vocabulary. So does Italian. That's the other one. Okay, and French. Okay, so Latin America means the place where Latin people are speaking Latin languages. Okay? We don't use the term like at all anymore, but for years, the United States and Canada were referred to as Anglo-America, okay? Because we speak the language of the Angles, Anglish, okay? So as you can see, Latin America extends well into the geographic area that's called North America. It captures Central America, and it should go all the way up to Mexico, but, you know, I can't draw a circle with a bump in it. It looks funny. So, okay, and North America, Anglo-America, is the United States and Canada, all right? But back when everybody was exploring and settling this land, nobody had a map, and if they had, they wouldn't have cared what the label was for the continent they were on. If you recall, they didn't even know it was a continent, 2 continents, for decades, right? They thought it was islands, just big, dumb land things in the way of going to China, all right? So the way we understand this huge map, the fact that we can look at a drawing of half the planet and know that it's accurate, that's what it really looks like, is just would have been unheard of to them. So they didn't divide the land up the same way that we do today, and they didn't name it the things that we would today, and it doesn't really matter. That's okay. Now you know. Moving on. In the last video, we covered 2 of the 3 great pre-Columbian, what does pre-Columbian mean? Before Columbus, pre-Columbian civilizations in the last video, the Aztecs and the Maya, and those were both in Mexico. All right, so now we have to do the last one, the 3rd one, the Inca, who lived in modern-day Peru and Chile, which is the west Pacific coast of South America. Okay, Peru is the northern part, Chile is the southern part today. Okay, so you've got a big map that shows you where in South America, and then this colored map shows you how they expanded their territory over time. So the darkest color, their territory started out just being that really small, dark red, and then they expanded to the orange. Then they expanded again to the lighter orange, okay, until finally the last territory they added is where? The very top of the map, in part of, actually that's Ecuador, modern day Ecuador, all the way up the coast. The Inca were builders, like the Maya and the Aztecs. But today, when you visit their buildings today, they're a little less impressive than the great Maya temples. The Inca built smaller individual buildings in these very elaborate complexes like you see in this picture. And the roofs of their buildings were made of thatch, which is plants. And so obviously those have decayed away long, long before any of us got to see them. Okay? And why did they build smaller buildings? Well, in case you didn't notice, they're building them high in the mountains, and the land there's not flat. So they're doing something called terracing, which is cutting steps into the side of the mountain, and then building a building that fits on the terrace. Okay, it can't be a giant, giant temple. The Great Machu Picchu ruin, one of the few places I'm willing to make a bucket list for just so I can put it on there. I really want to go there someday. Machu Picchu is an Inca city, right up in the mountains in Peru. So they made lots of roads, lots of canals. I don't know if you noticed on the last map, there were red lines. Those were all roads because they have a very large territory compared to the Aztecs. Whose territory was very small, and the Maya, neither of them really moved around a lot. The Inca have this huge empire ruled by one person, so they have all these roads to make that easier. And the most interesting thing is if you look at the llama, to the left of the llama, they built these walls, these stone walls, but they didn't cut the stone. Okay, the rocks are the way they were found, and they just arranged them. It's crazy. It's amazing. So once you start looking at the walls, it's amazing how straight and even they are, even though they're using rocks that are just so irregular, so naturally shaped. The word Inca comes from the name of their ruler, the Inca, who I mentioned there was only one ruler, complete dictator, controlled every detail of everyone's lives, down to the very poorest, uninteresting farmer, all the way down. So that's the Inca. You don't need to be following in your book. If you are using your book, this would be page 391, The Conquest of Peru. That's kind of where I am, right? But I'm also skipping around because we covered some of what's in your book already. So don't worry about it too much. Just, So, in the 1500s, a conquistador, right, a Spanish soldier named Francisco Pizarro, traveled to the land of the Inca. Everybody had heard that they were there. Traveled to the land of the Inca in search of gold, which he found. They did have gold. They had all kinds of stuff. Things made of gold, things decorated with gold, and he had fewer than 200 men, and even with just that small group, he was able to pretty easily defeat the poorly armed Inca. First by trickery, but then just in a straight up battle. The Inca were conquered. It's a little sad after hundreds of years of empire. They were wiped out pretty quickly. But it's okay. Pizarro didn't live very long to enjoy it anyway. He was killed by another Spaniard during an argument. So, as you see, he's like sort of inventing the duck face. And then the drawing here, the bigger picture, is of the Spaniards destroying an idol. And this is from a history book that was made in the early 1900s about the conquest of Peru. All right, we talked about Bartolome de las Casas in the last video, where he was the Dominican who was an explorer and then went and reformed his life, and then he came back to sort of try and take care of the native people. Okay, so the system he was trying to reform applies to both Central America, we did not talk about it yet, and to the Inca lands. So we're going to do it now. Okay, so this is the encomienda system, which was how the Spanish government, the king at this time, attracted Europeans to come over and risk their lives. It was dangerous. They're very far from, comfortable cities and great cathedrals and all that stuff. And they would be responsible for taking care of some of these money-making ventures in the New World, which were supposed to provide employment for these newly freed from tyranny native people and set up some kind of vague government system, at least a way for the king to know, okay, there are Europeans, my countrymen, Spanish-speaking, letting me know, oh, we raised this much stuff. We had a rebellion over here and a way of keeping control of this territory. Okay? Because the whole point of this exploration, right, is to make your kingdom more prosperous, make your kingdom more wealthy. Okay, well, we got to get something back out of this land. What are we going to do? Okay, so the encomienda itself is a document, and it granted land to the settler. Okay, and we think of settlers as the whole family going out to the prairie and starting a new town. Okay, like in English-speaking America. We talked about this in the last video. That's not the case here. These are individuals. Yes, sometimes there would be a family, but these were not people coming to the New World to build a city that would be just a little copy of the European cities. Okay, they were coming, and each individual would be the only European for hundreds of miles sometimes, right? And they're just there to oversee the production of whatever crop or raw material is being grown on their land, okay? So, supposed to be a way the native people are going to learn independence and how to fit in to this new Spain, right? The king and queen wanted them to be Spaniards, wanted them to be Christians, wanted them to be, civilized the way Europeans were civilized. And so, anyway, you can imagine there's abuse and mistreatment, which we did talk about that in the last video, so we'll move on. Once there's not really new land or to explore, or at least no new civilizations to conquer, we stop using the phrase age of exploration. We call this the colonial period. Okay, all these areas that had been carved out by the conquistadors become colonies of Spain. Okay, and there are quite a few saints during this time. They're all very pious. They cared for the poor. They were, missionaries. They went out into dangerous places. Some of them, like in the middle, Archbishop Toribio de Mogrovejo, also used their influence to discourage evil practices, such as slavery. But that's really the end of the early history. So you have the pre-Columbian era, and then you have Columbus and the conquistadors and the exploration and the conquest, and then you have the colonial era. Okay, we could talk about this here where the saints are for a long time. But A, it's not in your book. B, it's very complicated. Okay, and we have all these different kings, and it involves a lot of Europe's politics and what's going on there. Okay, for example, at one point, Spain and Portugal have a fight, and they literally get the Pope involved and make the Pope draw a line down through South America to decide what belongs to Spain and what belongs to Portugal. Okay, we're not going to deal with that now. That would be silly. It's the end of the year. This is the very last thing you have to do. We're not going to try and figure out Europe's politics at the same time. Okay, it is an interesting time period, but we're not going to have the opportunity to quite give it what it deserves. So we're just going to skip it. So there you go. Okay, so like North America, or should we just say Anglo-America and see if we can bring that back? Let's not do that. Okay, so like North America, colonies in South America underwent revolutions as well in order to stop being a colony of a European country, right? We know how this works: revolution, colony, independent. Okay, but there were a lot more places in South America that wanted their own separate independence. So this is a long, slow process. Can you guys tell I'm yawning? I do this late at night after my kids are asleep, so it's quiet. And then I'm like, oh, I'm yawning. Sorry. Anyway, so it's a long, drawn-out process. There are a lot of revolutions, right? In North America, it's basically just the one. And then there was the Texas thing, but, right? Just the one American Revolution. In South America, you see on the map here, there's a whole bunch of separate little revolutions. And when they do have their revolution, very, very often, the new government that replaces the Spanish government, the colonial government, The new government itself was very unstable and collapsed again soon after, which would spark either another revolution or like a civil war. Okay, this is what makes South American history very complicated. Okay, us United Statesians don't usually know anything about South American history. There's a lot to figure out, and once again, we're not going to try and wrap our brains around all that now. Just be silly. Okay, so this map's a little small. I'm not sure you can read all those numbers, but you get the idea. Okay, Brazil is independent in 1822, Peru in 1824, Venezuela in 1830. Okay, you can see some are later, some are earlier. There you go. Okay, Mexico is separate in your book because it's even more complicated than usual. This picture, you don't try and read those names. You can't read those names. Don't bother. This is a chart that shows the rulers of Mexico. And it's left to right. Those are years along the bottom. It starts with 1821. And this stops in 2016, but there's a little bit more history after that. But this stops in 2016. Okay, and these are their names. Okay, starting at the top. And you see there's some that rule basically at exactly the same time. And then there's that one guy who rules like forever. And then there's, okay. There have been 65 rulers, heads of state, in Mexico since 1821. Okay, 65. We've only had 39 men be president in that same time frame. Okay, so that's a lot of change. That's a lot of uproar. At one point, the average presidential, they changed names. The ruler of Mexico changes names. It's not always called the president. But the average time for a president to be in office in Mexico at one point was like 15 months. Okay, they almost never served the whole time that they were elected for. So it's pretty crazy. All right, so there's a lot there. Your book highlights the big ones, the most important ones, okay, including all the way up into the 20th century, the ones that have to do with the Catholic Church and persecution of the church. Okay, so check those out. And then that's really it. I'm going to stop there. Okay, you know I love my maps, so we'll get 2 more maps. Here's one that's been exploded. Okay, the countries are separated like one of those horrible puzzles. Did you know that Suriname is in South America? I definitely thought it was in Asia before this, so I'm fired. Right, so here's your countries by size. Brazil is actually the 5th largest country in the world. Brazil is enormous, and I don't know what it is about our maps that just don't make it seem quite that big. Brazil is a really big country. 60% of the Amazon rainforest is in Brazil. Okay, we didn't do animals this time. There's a lot of nature in South America. Okay. Brazil is the #1 exporter of coffee in the world. Neat things. Argentina is where Pope Francis is from. Peru is where we talked about Machu Picchu. And there you go. And here they are all put together. Okay, so as you read the chapter, there will be many things that we covered here or in the Central America video. Okay, and there will be some things that are new. You get to a section, you're like, this is all, we just did this in the video. It's okay. Just skim it, move forward, go to the next bit. But I do want you to actually look at the whole chapter, okay? Because you do need to choose and answer your review questions at the end, okay? You can do it. I believe in you. This is your last homework. I know you can do a great job. If you have questions, you know how to get a hold of me. But this is it for South America. I'm done. Okay, it was a little confusing the way your book did things, and then a little confusing how I added the videos on top of it. That's okay. We won't die. We learned a lot, and I will talk to you about your essay next week.